Hello, today we're going to be talking for the podcast channel named Brickwa Publishing House Limited Liability Company. We're going to be talking about how I first started in the writing world. So I'll be sharing a few tips that I picked up once while being in this transition of becoming from the creator, the writer, and the author. So how I started was in 1986, basically. It was the four of us, and we were just playing around as we usually did. The youngest was 7 years old, my youngest sister or sibling, and back then there was no age restriction. Well, there was in Italy, but I mean we were allowed to watch rated R movies in regards that they were um, creepy murder movies, we knew that it was all fake, and we had to explain the youngest sibling that everything was a lie, was fake. So, in order for us to make something similar, I wrote down a sketch of a book of a story, and we follow along, getting our characters. So we used two tape recorders to do that, and so we took the our main characters were or they needed to be children to begin with. So we took um, the the Barbie's nephews because there was like the family heart the family heart I believe it was, and so they had little kids and because they had to pretend that they had children, so it was a happy family. And then they had also the seniors, the grandparents of those children. We took all of them, even the shoes, our feet, they were part of the characters. We just wanted to make it. I think that we complicated ourselves too much. We could have because nobody was. They were not on the spot. There was no camera. There was no one recording them, so we can just make up the same character, use him, and re-murder him, and so forth. And but instead, we wanted to make it more in-depth, realistic, in a way that we took per neighbor kids for the Barbies. We took each kid and so forth, each doll, the socks, the feet, the shoes. There were the characters too. The main murder was a clown. Basically, it was always a clown. So um, for the English version, is actually the whistle, the name of the book. So and that one being again for us, it was funny because after the kids were murdered, they continually kept screaming, talking, and then laughing. Too many bloopers. The bloopers were actually left raw because there was no way for us to edit that and cut it off. It remained inside the filming, the audio movie filming ordeal. So that was basically the first time that I went on and wrote a particular book. It was not a novel, it was like a short story. It was just for fun for all of us. Um, if you look at from the psychopathic or from the mental health ordeal, then you know that it's messed up. But for us, it was a fun time, quality time that we all make up. They all pitched in with a story. There was the disco. Everything took place in a train, basically. So we in our heads we only used like two cabins from the train, the bathroom and the discotheque, and that was it. And so we brought down scatterly the volume down from the music to make it seem that they were walking into another scene, into another cabin, another train, and there was actually the bathroom. That's where the kids got murdered and so forth. And then they all came. They ended up being diminished because the clown basically murdered all the kids. And because there were actually families and so forth, but the kids were the ones. I mean, they automatically announced. We announced that whenever they said that they were afraid, that there was an announcement that they were gonna get murdered. And so with that particular novel is that I'm just gonna throw myself and publish it, but I think I will do it uh, with my own publishing company, so it can be hooked to it, and I don't have to like unpublish it, republish it with my publishing house. Because the thing is that when I started also publishing books, as I mentioned once before, I did it with the wrong publishing company who were ripping me off, and that it was blurb.com from India as well. And so I found out that they were ripping me off because they were selling L'Enfant Invisible, a novel that or a short story that I wrote based upon an invisible girl, a little child, who she was not seen by anyone because she had died, and so but she was seeing everything and everyone, and she details and explains how, from her perspective, how is it that she's seeing people and and she sees her mother and she gets closer to her, but the mother cannot see her eventually, right? Because she's not psychic. But the child can foresee everything that her mother does and what happens in her surroundings with her mother, to her mother as well, and so forth. So the book was sold at eBay as a used book for $118, shipping included, but I never received a single cent. And if it was a used book, it was never sold, how can it be used? So that's when I confronted them. It was a back and forth argument in the emails. They, in order to erase the evidence that I ever published with them, they went on and erased all the. They deleted the entire. How can I say? The manuscripts of the books that I published with them. They wipe it out so I would not sue them, because eventually that made me not believe but know that they took the blame, and so because they got caught they erased it. So that's something that I messed up with. And I was using also their ISBNs. As with Amazon, also I'm still using their ISBNs, but there will be a part in it in which I will be unpublishing my books once I have my publishing house patented and recorded and so forth, and then using my ISBNs. And when I add my own ISBN, the publishing company is going to show up. So whenever you scroll down and who is the publisher, it's not going to say anymore the independent publisher. It will instead show Britbois Publishing House, LLC, and it's a small business because basically, as for the employee itself, I am the only employer. I am the chairman, the chief director and editor. I am the graphic designer for content creator and within the characters of the books, and also the uh, creator of the book covers, back and front, the spine, and so forth. I do all of that. The one thing I'm still practicing on is because I want to have the books to have also the sleeves or the case or the jacket, whatever you want to call it, to overlap the hardcover, and also why not the paperback? Because I've also seen around on Pinterest that there are books, there are paperbacks, and they have the jacket that embraces the entire cover because it's part of the what's it called? For paperback, the sleeve or the jacket is part of the actual paperback cover. Versus for the hardcover, you got the case, but you also have the jacket that it or the sleeve. The jacket is called like that better. That it overlaps the books itself. So I don't have to concentrate in doing the hardcover when there is actually a jacket for it. So as for that, um, um, if I were to sell my books, there are two things. if I continue, which I might not, but just for people's eyes, I will have to unpublish the books, republish them. That would be also as a second edition, and then add the ISBN that upon which they were attached, but why I published them and so forth, so I can show the company, the small business company, minds on the publishing house ordeal. And because with Amazon, I have to buy also the ASIN number in order to sell my books with them. But I don't want to do that, although because it's an extra that I have to spend, so it's an extra $300 or something of that sort. But if I sell them only with my the ISBN on my website, I'm cool with it. I'm fine. Because the thing with them is that they're not paying me, so that's why I'm having my second thoughts in order to just go ahead and do it with my publishing instead. Because now I think, well, I feel much confident and stronger about it to do it, to take ownership and just do it. And for versus to still depend on Amazon with their own ISBNs. Because basically what they do is that they move around the book when once it's released to different housing companies, publishing companies, in order or stores, bookstores, so they can sell my book. But none of those stores actually move my book. They don't promote it because since it's a second hand, it's not like an actual publishing house. That's why when I meant to say that it's a second hand book, it's not backed up by an authentic publishing house. If it were, then I think it would be sold because it's seen as a meaningless book, then because it doesn't have the publishing company displayed as small business. That's what I'm trying to say. And as for what goes with how I like, for instance, when I also started writing my books, I am the visual type person, so I like to see um, the characters, and from what I'm seeing them in my mind, and I try to um, like, for instance, there is it's 20th May 1820 novel, but prior that when I started writing that, it was a small, like 122 pages. Despite me writing a lot, it is that was the amount of pages, and then I brought it up to almost 300 pages because I had to enlarge the font to 12, or from 12 to 13. Now the book is getting a little bit um, because I have also edited and bring the font size a little bit larger for 14 font size, and for people who are that they have their eyesight lower, perhaps they can read it like in 14 size, and that would be the highest I will go. But now it's reaching around, it's bypassing the 600 pages, almost 800 pages. And I'm like, okay, then that means that I can back it up with me, with my publishing house, because I don't mind the 800 pages, but Amazon does mind that. They can't handle that amount of pages. They go by 600, and that's it for paperback, and 550 or 500 for hardcover. And so I didn't know how to do to add those images, and I did not want to cut them out, like depicting per chapter or some chapters and the scenes. And so, because I'm a very visual person, then I will expect the reader perhaps to be a visual person. So then I had to learn how to describe what I was seeing as a movie scene in my mind and just follow along with it. So for 20th May, I had to bring the three volumes together and make out of it a thick book in order to appreciate the spine of the book. Otherwise, there was no spine. There was a spine, but it was nothing. It was not like an art or deal that you can create something pretty for that spine of that book. And so, what I like, for instance, volume one was meeting a writer or meeting the writer. For that one, it was like the Duchess Elizabeth of Lancaster in York. She meets the writer that she always wanted to meet. Being this a girl, her name was Jane Austen, so I included that personage in the actual book, and I added touches such the desk that she used, the octagonal desk that she round table that Jane Austen used to write her writings, her novels. I included it in it. Since it's a public domain, that part, then I did include it, then twisted a little bit the scene that Jane sent the Duchess a letter, trying to get her into mixing or blending with my novel and so forth. But there were some scenes also from the barn that has nothing to do with Jane, but it has to do with the Duchess. And so now that because I struggle on that part, I don't like books that are only words and there are no images. Of course, because also some writers are good in describing the scenes and the personality of the person. I have a hard time doing that. So that's why I included the images. Now I am finding myself more released and more comfortable in not showing images, just the plain, the actual words explaining and describing. Because back then I'd really struggle with it. Such the blurb, I tend to struggle with the blurb as well because I don't want to give it away, and I don't know how not to, and how not to also make it look boring. So that's the one thing that I'm also struggling with the blurb. And in regards to images such as drawings and so forth, I follow authors, writers, self-publishing authors who have given me an idea on how to on YouTube. So they gave me like an idea that in regards the images of those the characters or the scenes, chapter scenes, is that either I can do two things for my publishing house because it doesn't work if I do it directly with Amazon. I'm not gonna like tell them, okay, then I'm gonna send you also the pictures, colorful pictures or drawings of the characters, say for the per chapter or book, so X book, and then you just insert them. It doesn't work like that. And so what this two things, what these people do, YouTubers, self-publishing people, companies, is that because it's a small business on their end as well. What they do is that they don't add images, only words in their in their books, whether hardcover or paperback. They don't. So what they do instead is that they print separately the characters for that particular book, and then either when they're packaging it to send it to the reader, client, who customer who bought it, either they put the book in the box with some China paper or something like that, and then the wrinkling ones, and after put the book, then they put on top the images, the like cards, say, of the characters. Or you can get away with it and still be smart to do it like Jane Austen's books from their publishing company, which I don't remember what it was, but I will Google it also and then insert it in the links below. Is that on the books that they print, They also made it a little bit realistic in regards to that the book looks like it's a story itself of Emma or any some sort of novel from Jane Austen. And as an example, Emma, and then they included a letter, and this is actually a vintage um, 1820 something like that um, century letter from that particular character. And so they folded it and they placed it per book on that particular book. And then also characters, the images, they just inserted inside the book like a surprise book. When you open it, it's a this is a surprise. It's a letter. This is an actual letter that the character sends, and it's talked about, but it's not quite displayed in the book. But they inserted a letter for you to read exactly what it was written in the letter. That's something, the details that I liked, and so I thought of doing that too. In as for printing the book itself, not quite sure if I will be binding and then doing it that on my publishing home house, or if I would have someone here to print the books for me, so I can then go ahead and do the jacket of the books. Um, at least for the hardcover, because the other one, then I will need to send them the jacket, hardcover with the jacket included for paperback, so they can then they just fold it and then insert in there the details, such a letter, a note, um, an evidence if it were like a murder missing mystery book, um, the fingerprint or something of that sort, just to make it look like a domino, not a domino, like I think it's a domino, one of those games, card games that you leave the clues and then they pick it up like the journeys or something that you have to find that the missing I don't know item, but is included in the book because you just inserted it in it. Something of that sort is what I would like to do with the per the not all on all the books, because I don't want to look at make it look like if it's a boring book, but in a particular book like 20th May 1820 on year 1700, because there are the details there, like a letter, like the dictionary, pages of the dictionary in it that I have to like recreate to make it look like it's an actual dictionary, but it's not. So those will be like pages included in the book, something of that sort, because I am very creative when it has to do with books. As I mentioned before, I am very how can I say, aside of I visualize. I visualize a lot, and I like to create and also to surprise the reader, as I would like to have been given a book of that sort. You open it up and it not all the chapters, but some of the chapters that lead you onto it, but you also find clues. They're loosened clues. So that's cool to do that. Versus when you write a normal book, either with or without images, is that on Amazon or any other website, you can't get away with the creativity is limited and is actually stalled, and you can't go on beyond because is then you can't send them that put this and this in current the certain pages. But if you in my end, if I do the publishing house actually, then I just print the books and then add the insert in it the details upon the cards instead of sending the book with all the cards of the characters on top of it. I think I'm gonna sneeze, so bear with me just a second. All right, thank you. And that's how I started. And with books goes, the the podcast on YouTube. It has three podcasts basically. This one being the actual one for books that I write, And there are others, like for instance, this one that has my face, but I have like a royal hat, black hat, and that one is only for royalty that I will be talking on that channel. And there's another one that it would have been the standard one, in which I have included a couple of novels, but I can't take them back because it's already up like that, and it's not like I can change the picture as the avatar picture in it. Uh, it has to stay like that. So it's the one, the leading channel that leads with what's it called, the Lady Angela the Third podcast channel. That's the main channel, and that's it's gonna be talking about um, I don't know, perhaps mental health and so forth. But even though I started with books, and now that I think about it, this is the basically like the first channel basically in regards that Brick and Bois Publishing House, uh, limited liability company, is gonna be mainly about the books that I write. And though I have also published, not published but released, well, yeah, I have published books, but released a video that I was trying to upload the book that I published entitled Princess by the Name of Monique. So it went on. It was also accepted, and I have included the link from Amazon that the book is being sold at, either paperback or Kindle. Kindle is $9.99. It's $10. The other one is $17, and it's only paperback. I'm not gonna go with their beta hardcover because it's so frustrating to actually do the hardcover itself, creating it, because everything has to be like in the middle. You cannot go beyond, and they don't allow you to get away with including the images like a huge portrait, because according to them it gets cut, but it's not cut, it's just bent in. It's indented in as a card cover. It needs to be indented to embrace the actual spine of the book. I don't know why they complicate themselves. So I'm not gonna do no hardcovers. Hardcovers are gonna be on my end also. Um, and so that's about it that I wanted to mention. Also, the other thing that I want to say is that I'm not a poetic person. I just like to express myself in writing. And so, but I do a little bit of stanzas. I call them stanzas, and I've always mentioned them, or yeah, I always call them stanzas, not poetry. Poetry will like if there's a rhyme at the end of each letter, each word actually, but it's not always like that. It's more of the feeling that is within. So that will be included in this chapter on this podcast. And for poems is whatever your soul is feeling tormented or bleeding, it helps to pour it out in writing what that moment is um, making you feel that sentiment. So it is poured down, and it will be like there's a book that I'm writing. I understand that it will take some time to publish it, but as long as I have perfection it and I have master and gather more and more uh, short stories into a couple of paragraphs. Short paragraphs are basically like a poem, basically. And I took the idea from a Pinterest, someone, I don't know who did that, from Taylor Swift, that it's a song, but in that song, it talks about a story. And it doesn't go beyond past that, but it gives you the idea of the message within that particular poem. Let's call it like that. And at the top, it has like a banner, the title, the banner, and it depicts basically what I was talking about previously, in which I struggled that I like books that have images. So it depicts like year 1700, that novel, and it shows uh, Walter when he was 13 years old, but then Elizabeth Dawson, my character, meets him. She doesn't understand that it's actually she's talking to three men who are basically the same one, meaning she meets first the 13-year-old, but then he vanishes, and then she sees the 28 or 32 years old, and then he vanishes, and then he out of the blue she's talking with the senior, but they never see each other. The three of them, they're never together. They're always um, in different places each. Because it never hit me to include them all together. That would have been something. But that book basically is like a portal. It's a travel portal that there is one item in real life that I have in which the spectrum he appeared in it, and is from the year 1700. It's a silver platter from 1947 that I have, and is I don't remember the country, but I wrote it down in my journal. But it's a 1947 silver platter, and it's laced. It has peacocks, deers. It's laced. It has holes, perforated holes, depicting the scene of the hunting. It has peacocks, so and butterflies and little birds. It's pretty. It's very rounded. But in the center there is a man who appears in the picture on the Instagram of my mother that I posted. But then when I looked at it one day, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! There's a man inside. It's very elderly." And so I thought, all right, Walter, I will include him. He was also a writer, author, a rebel from France, a total disaster. And it is believed that because of him, it was because that there was the revolution of France took stage, and it did all the killing from Marie Antoinette and La Princesse de Lamballe, also murders. And because of him, because of his mouth, he couldn't. If that he would have controlled it, at least the blame wouldn't have been on him, but it is on him. So I included not that part, but I did include the small things that I made up from that character in order to mix for the year 1700. So based on per book that I liked, that I wrote about novels goes, I am going to be including poetry that holds and backs up that particular story, but doesn't, show it all. And it will be a per page ordeal, and at the top they will have like the images that I like to display as a very visual person. And that's all that I wanted to share for the moment. And on my end is 23:46 at the moment. It has been quite a journey writing, and quite a journey the whole day because our dog had an infection in her stomach. Her stool was bleeding. She was vomiting like she did not need to struggle to vomit. It just came out the whole water, and that was not it was not normal. So she needed um, urgent attention from the veterinarian. We were there basically not at night, but we were there, and now we're here with her, and she's much calmer. She was injected many things to stop the vomiting and the pooing, the diarrhea that she had. She's more stable than canned food what was given to her. That's the only thing that she can eat right now, and then other couple of things that they are stabilizing her. But that was quite an ordeal the entire day. And I was like, but all right, but I also need to do the podcast, and this is the only time that I'm seeing silence in the house. that I can project and indent what I'm feeling, because I wanted to write it down first and then read it from there, so I would not miss anything. But I believe that I have gathered everything that I wanted to share here in this audio. So until further ado, then I will be including more podcasts for my publishing company onto YouTube only. And also StreamYard. I thank you a lot for allowing me to stream the podcast and record them so I can upload them onto YouTube. So I will be tagging them because I believe that they are a great engine and that it helps me a lot to do the podcast, which is something that I always wanted to do. So thank you. Have a delightful day until further on. Notice I'll be hearing more about this particular channel on podcast YouTube, and please don't forget to subscribe, share, and follow this channel. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Have a delightful day, evening, whichever day you are at.